Good morning, everyone. My name is Xavier Franch, as Xavier presented me, and I'm the project coordinator of the RISCOSS project, an European-funded project I'm going to introduce. I have seen some faces that were here also last year, so this is a kind of follow-on of what I presented in the conference in the 13th edition. And I will present what is the current state. We are in the second year of the project, and what are our future work and expectations. So just a couple of slides to summarize what is the project about. This is the motivation. That's what we thought was worth to define a project around. It's about risk management. And the main statement that we use for the project is the topmost one. We have several reports that qualify risk management was one of the topmost mistakes to avoid when implementing open source-based solution. This is one of the sides of the coin that leverages the positive, the innovation, and the other advantages that we all know about the adoption of open source solutions. And this can be for many reasons. I'm listing here a list that we use for classifying the work that we do, about risk, about evaluation of open source, about the integration in existing systems, and so on. This was the motivation of the RISCOSS project. And the RISCOSS tries to provide models, techniques, platform support for the specification of risk identification, management, and mitigation in open source adoption. Talking about collaboration and making things together, RISCOSS is a collaborative project. We have 8 partners that are academic and industrial partners. And as part of the core of the project, we have 5 use cases that are driving the research that we are doing of quite different nature. So we have Ericsson Italy, which has the profile of a large company with lots of departments and lots of intricate relationships between them. We have Senatic, that is an observatory that boosts open source adoption and projects in Spain, in the public administration of Spain. Then OW2, you know these guys. XWiki, also a member of OW2, that represents a medium-sized community and also plays the role of a small, medium enterprise adopting open source, so they play a double role in the project. And then we have Mutbai, that is a small community that grew up in our university, in the UPC in Catalonia, that are providing an open source interface on top of the Moodle educational system, if you know it. So we're using these use cases as part of the drivers that tailor the need for the project, and also afterwards for validation of our methods and techniques. Okay, so basically what would be the slide that could summarize what is the current approach of RISCOSS? This slide. Basically, we are taking a 3-layer approach to risk management, in which we have, in the bottom layer, we have data, basically. But in fact, and this is quite distinctive of what we do, we don't try to make anything automatic. We recognize the importance of having experts in the loop that may define a scenario that may help us to identify, to prioritize, and to interpret the risks in a particular setting. So we have in the left-hand side, we have this more quantitative approach in which we collect measures from project repositories and also from the community behavior. From these measures, we build indicators, and these indicators feed a business model. Part of what we say is that, or what we try to investigate in the project, is that the risks that stem from the, let's say, from the technical part of the open source project propagate up to the business goals of the organizations that are involved in the open source ecosystem. So that's why we are investigating how we can find ways to propagate these bottom layer measures into the top level business goals. We have developed a platform that follows this idea. This is a quite sketchy view of the platform that tries to, summarize what are the 2 components that are tied together. We have the risk management and the business manager. In the risk manager, we have different data collectors that are managed in order to investigate which are the risks that are around and that are collected in a repository that is managed by the business manager. so that we can elaborate on top of this repository and to investigate how the business goals are fulfilled. Now I'm going to focus on the key points that we are working on. These are the current state, these represent the current state of the project, maybe the most representative parts. And I have identified these 6 key points. I will present very briefly one slide each. The ontology of risks that we are using for classifying our work, the data model that is driving how we can attach these risks to particular organizational entities, the fact that we have a flexible architecture working with multiple data sources, some patterns about open source adoption in which we try to classify the different companies that are involved or organizations that are involved in an ecosystem, how do we model risks, and how do we implement the link of these risks to the business. So basically, this is a high-level view of the ontology of risk. We have small things that are not in the picture, but this is quite representative. We see like 2 big boxes. At the left bottom side, we have the part of risks, and the top right, we have the part of the organization. So in the part of risks, we have as the finest granularity concept, the concept of risk driver, that is a particular type of measure that is an indicator or can be converted into an indicator of risks. For instance, the frequency of fixing bugs or the frequency of releasing indicators, releases. These are risk drivers. So several risk drivers can be aggregated into risk indicators, for instance, timeliness of the community around the project. And these indicators that are higher, let's say, of a higher level of abstraction, are bound to risk events. For instance, a risk event could be a low level of adoption of a particular component. We detect that this event happens. And we try to relate this event with a particular risk, and concretely with a business risk. A business risk could be that we are not selling enough of our software system. So this is the part of risks, and then we have the link between risks and organizational elements, so that risk events impact on different types of organizational elements. And these organizational elements are mainly of 4 types: a full actor, like a company, a concrete company; a goal, a particular goal of the company; a more specific task, or a more specific resource, for instance, a software system. So we are using this ontology in order to populate our models and to populate at the later extent the knowledge base that we are using in our project. Then we have a flexible data model too, in the sense that these risks can be bound to different types of scopes, and this fits very well with the use cases we have in the project. As I said, we may have complicated organizational schemas like in Ericsson, in which we have departments, areas, and we have different types of responsibles in charge of things, and we have others that are simpler. Then we may define this kind of scopes that can be an organizational unit. We may attach a risk to a product, to a process, to a project, to a component, whatever. And then the risks are valid for this particular scope. The data model is flexible in the sense that this specialization that I'm showing is not closed, it's open, so you may define additional scopes and to make a hierarchy with them using this association that you see in the top. So a scope may be decomposed into several sub-scopes. We have an open problem that is part of our current research, that is the composition of different scopes that have different risk models. And this is interesting, as I said, in a case like Ericsson, that they need this because they have different perceptions of risks in different departments, and we need to be able to combine, to reconcile these perceptions. An important part of our approach to make it really operational and to make it really attractive, we think, for potential adopters, is the facility to bring into the platform new data sources. The data sources are the basis of our intelligence in the system. We feed our models with the observations that we draw from repositories of data. These repositories of data can be very technology dependent, and we may have different technologies. So what we have done is to have a kind of plug architecture in which we may plug a new a small component attached to a particular technology, to a JIT, a gyro, whatever, so that at the execution time we can bind when we install or we start to run our system for a particular deployment. We may identify which is the URL in which a particular repository is installed. We need to have the component for the technology that we are monitoring, and from this moment we can start to collect the data from this repository. Then we go to a more, let's say, model-oriented part. We are fighting with this business level with a model perspective. Our ultimate, let's say, aim is to be able to simulate, to analyze via different techniques how the impact of risks may be in the business goals. As part of this effort, what we have done is to identify several patterns about how organizations may adopt open source. So we have identified up to 6 different patterns that depend on the level of involvement of the community and also to the perspective as a consumer or as a producer of open source. These patterns are not exclusive, meaning that an organization may play with several of them, and then we need to combine the different elements that are in the pattern. So I will not enter into details of the model. It is just to give you a graphical vision that we have this a particular language that is an existing language in software engineering to represent the business model of the organization. Then we have the risk models. This is really at the core. So how do we investigate and represent what is the link between the data collectors and the risks? You may see that we have a model with different types of elements. At the bottom, we have the indicators that represents the data that is collected. Then we have situations that are indicated by these data collectors. And then we have events that are the ones that are ultimately linked, according to the ontology, to the business goals. And then we have identified several types of relationships, like increase, reduce, impact, so that we may build a network of knowledge around the different types of risks. We have built an analysis tool that is basically propagating the different values from the leaves to the roots of this model and combining in different ways the possible values that may be found when combining. And then, if we take the 2 former models, we combine these 2 models into one composite model. You can see, for instance, in the bottom, these kind of triangles that represent the roots of the risk model that are linked into the business model, so that at the end, with these same analysis tools, we can propagate the values into the business goals. So putting all together, that's what we have in our current platform. We have different ways of representing these goals. We also, I have skipped this part, but we have also integrated some software in order to represent the knowledge acquired from the experts through interviews. And with all of this, we are able to fit our platform to get assessment of the fulfillment or not of different types of risks, different types of business goals, and so on. So this is basically all. This is my last slide, just to make Cedric happy. So basically, now what we are doing, we think that we have a quite decent baseline to work, and what we want now is to increase the quality of our models. We have models that are stemming from our use cases, but of course this is quite limited because we have 5 use cases. And what we want to do, and this is one of the messages I will give you to all of you, is to find early adopters that are interested in experiment what we are offering in order to have some assessment about some particular type of risks of whatever type. So this is what is one of our main goals. Currently, we have quite complete goals for licenses and quality factors, and also what we are working is in the propagation of these risks into the business goals. We have focused on one particular scenario in the platform, that is adoption of a single component. this needs to be evolved. But currently, basically with the platform, what we can do is, okay, I want to adopt a particular component. Let's see what would be the risks that are inherent to the adoption of this component. This is a one-shot risk, so we need to, if we want to monitor a long time this component, we need to repeat this scenario. And in the long term, what we want to do is to make this monitoring as built-in the platform, so that simply we may have indicators that are triggered when they reach a certain threshold. And as I said already in the beginning, the composition of risk models is one of the challenging things because we have pieces, and these pieces need to be put together. So currently we can analyze risks individually, but what happens if we want to put them together? And we are struggling to open to the full community as soon as possible in order to get this feedback I was asking for. And with this, I conclude my talk. For whatever information you may find here, my contact, and thanks for your attention.